Kind of a tag along and I just kind of hear what she has to say and throw in a few transactional things along the way. But today's a little different because Cindy's on an airplane heading off to someplace, or else she's sitting on a tarmac somewhere with the rain coming down. I'm not sure what. But anyway, so asked what it was that she was going to cover today. And she was going to cover several articles in the Code of Ethics. And I know that probably all of you know many of these things already, but that doesn't matter. The Code of Ethics are something that we should review whenever we can. And the specific articles that she had outlined for us are the, I'm going to share a screen here, I think. Okay, that appears to be shared. I think you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. But it's not that all that first article is unimportant, but the ones that she mainly wanted us to take a look at today are the ones that she was going to cover had she been here. Were the ones that I have highlighted here. This obviously you can print out if you need to. I think Carolyn's going to stick it in the chat, or we can email it out to anybody who has an interest in it. These are actually right out of the NAR Code of Ethics, and it's our guidelines and articles and things. So you already have access to them no matter what. But we're going to start here with Article 2. And I'm going to read it first, and then we're going to talk about it just a little bit from a transactional standpoint and from just kind of break it down a little bit. But realtors shall, well, maybe I won't read it. I thought I was going to. Realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts relating to the party or the transaction. Realtors shall not, however, be obligated to discover latent defects in the property, to advise on matters outside the scope of their real estate license, or to disclose facts which are confidential under the scope of agency and non-agency relationships. Now let's start at that last part and work backwards. The idea of not disclosing facts which are confidential. You're going to go out and you're going to work with sellers and you're going to build a relationship there, and there's going to be people that will tell you things that are really only between the two of you. You may know that a couple is going through a divorce. You may know that people have lost jobs. You may know that somebody's way behind on their mortgage. You may know, who knows? You get the picture. You may know things, and really, they do not impact the value of the house, and they should not impact the desire of the buyer to buy or the seller to sell. We disclose facts that are pertinent to the property. You can talk about the property. You can talk about problems with the property. You can talk about whatever you want to as far as what the seller discloses to you, except for things that are confidential. And that only makes sense that you don't want to talk about. You know what happens is we get motivated. We go out and we have these seller questionnaires, right? We're interviewing a seller and we're saying, what's your motivation of selling? Well, my wife and I are splitting up, and we have an attorney involved who says that we have to sell the property and split the assets and those kind of things. Well, that is information that is between them and you. Unless they say, be sure and go out there and tell everybody that we're getting a divorce so that we can get this sold really quickly, which that never happens. Okay, I've been in business for 33 years and I haven't ever heard that one come about. But generally speaking, when they tell you something, they're telling you something in confidence. And we are there to be a calming influence on this situation for them. We are there to be a confidant. They should be able to tell us anything without thinking that they're going to all of a sudden see it on Zillow or see it or hear about it from another agent who comes to show the property. The agent shows up and says, oh, I'm sorry to hear about your divorce. How soon do you have to sell the house? Well, is that Is that something that they should know? And the answer to that is no, they shouldn't know that. So let's go back to the little more obvious ones. Misrepresentation, exaggeration. Where do we do that? Well, if and when we do it, we can do it in our the remarks that we put in there, the description of the property and things. You know, we use terms which are okay sometimes, but you know, if I told you that it was a cozy 2-bedroom, then what comes to mind? Cozy kind of makes you think it's going to be small, right? And so there are things in there that you kind of put in there that but that doesn't misrepresent it because it is small and things. But if we put things in there that for instance, enhance pictures, can all of you enhance a picture? Probably. You know, it's maybe Jackie and I have trouble with that and things, but for the most part, the rest of you guys know how to enhance pictures. You can put green lawns, you can landscape a backyard, you can put in a pool if you wanted to and things. You can only take pictures from eye level up when you go into a house, and be sure not to take pictures of the floor. And you can do things that misrepresent the house that they're actually going into. And as long as you've done a good job with your pricing and things like that, it shouldn't matter what you take a picture of, as long as it doesn't include things like children and little tricycles and things like that. But that's not misrepresentation. That is just explaining what the house looks like. And guess what? Because it has no floor, or carpets are torn, or paint's chewed up, or whatever, an investor will be interested in it. Somebody who's going to flip it, somebody who's going to do something else. So it doesn't, it's only material if you misrepresent things. So let's just talk about where we cover ourselves. Here it says, remember your AVID, right? First page of the AVID. I'm not going to go through and tell everybody how to fill out an AVID because we had a class on that the other day. But I do want to refer to a couple of things. Notice here that it says California law requires that the real estate broker or salesperson conduct a reasonably competent and diligent visual inspection of reasonably and normally accessible areas. All right, so now that could be maybe subjective. Well, what's accessible and stuff? Well, what's accessible to Miguel is different than me. I'm older than he is, and so I can't go in all the places. But here's a description of what the law says. California law does not require the agent to inspect the following. We don't have to do anything with areas offsite of the property. We don't need to go pull public records and permits and things. Doesn't mean that you may not want to, because somebody may try to argue the fact that a room is permitted or something, and I may want to go find it out for myself. However, we're not required to by law. We're not required to research common areas. And exception to that, or it's not really an exception because it's up to the seller to disclose the cooperatives, like if it's part of an HOA, or if it's condominium complex or something. That's the seller's responsibility to get those things. Let's talk about additional inspection limitations. You will not climb on the roof. We don't want you to do that, even if that wasn't written in there. But you don't climb on the roof. You don't have to get into the attic. You don't have to go beneath the house if there's a subfloor in it, or if it's a manufactured home or something. You don't have to climb up and down hillsides if it's built on a hillside. You don't have to move to look behind plants, and you don't have to do all of those kind of things. You don't have to turn on all of the appliances to find out whether or not they work. That's not a requirement of this. We don't have to look at the size of the property. And what I mean by that is when you're dealing with the size of, when you're dealing with a property that's in a development of some kind, probably the assessor's information is going to be accurate on that. The lot is 7,405 square feet or whatever it happens to be. But I don't have to go out and find the corners. Sometimes when I'm dealing with rural areas where it's acreage instead of a lot size, I may want to know where my corners are, but I'm going to ask the seller to take care of that for me. he's the one that's going to, even down to the point of if we want to get a surveyor or something, unless he doesn't have the money, then we'll leave it up to the buyer. But we need to know approximately where those corners are so that we know where the property lies. However, it's not up to us to go out and measure it. You know what? If we went out and had to measure it, not only would we be walking up those hillsides that it just told us not to do, but we also would be trudging around through who knows what. And if I don't know how many of you have had a tape out where about halfway through the thing, it winds up itself or it snaps and breaks or something else. Our potential for inaccuracy is big on those things. So it's not up to us to do that. And we don't have to, we don't disclose environmental hazard. Are there any of you out there that know about asbestos or lead paint or radon gas or formaldehyde or any of those things? Do we know those things? No, most of the time we don't know those things. And even if we did know those things, it's not up to disclose those. And off-property condition, okay, agent is not obligated to pull permits. We just talked about that a minute ago. So it's not up to you to go out and do those kind of things. It does say down here that in bold letters, buyer should review any disclosures obtained from the seller, obtain advice about and inspections of the property from other appropriate professionals. Okay, that's other than us. We're a professional, but we're not a professional in everything, and we shouldn't try to be. So this is kind of our, it's not really a total escape because there are some things that we're required to talk about in this AVID, but these are the things that we don't have to do. So don't put yourself in a position to go out and do it. Oh, don't worry, I'll go down and find out all the permit things. I'll go down and see where I'll get a surveyor out there. We'll find out where the corners are. But that's not your responsibility. So unless you want to also be liable for some of those things, don't put yourself in a position to do that. Not only does the Code of Ethics say that we're not obligated to do that, but our agent's visual inspection disclosure says the same thing. So here we go. Realtors shall only be obligated, standard practice 2-1, to discover and disclose adverse factors reasonably apparent to someone with expertise in those areas required by real estate license and activity. Okay, so we don't know about mold. We might. I might be able to look in a shower and say, ooh, gosh, I think that's mold. That's all fuzzy and black and all that kind of stuff. Do I know that it's mold, or do I just know that it's fuzzy and black? I can see maybe wings or droppings or something in a windowsill or in a corner or something. I can see maybe a little mud funnel in the garage by the footings or something. I may see things that I think, because of my experience, indicate that there's the potential for termites. However, it is not up to me to say that the potential for termites exists. I'm not an expert in that field. So Article 2 does not impose upon the realtor the obligation from other technical disciplines. That means that if mold is an issue, or if I think mold might be an issue, then I call the experts in that field. I call the experts in the wood pest control field, or whatever it happens to be. I call them and make sure that those are taken care of. These next 2 and 2, they were both moved back to 1, so we're not going to cover them here. But realtors shall not be parties to the naming of false consideration in any document unless it be the naming of obviously nominal consideration. Okay, so consideration can be defined as a lot of different things. Sometimes consideration is money. Sometimes consideration is something else. Anyway, it is not my position to offer out or mislead or take care of any false consideration on any disclosures. If I had one agent that I just kind of asked about this to see what their response was. And he said, yeah, consideration could be anything as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I say that If you list your house with me, I'll take your daughter out or something like that. And yeah, obviously, that's not where we're playing. Where false consideration is maybe telling somebody, that same person, that I know that you have to sell your house, but let's move forward on getting this new house in escrow with the COP, a contingency, a purchase or sale of another property. And they really don't intend on doing that or aren't in a position to do that. They don't have enough equity to do that. And all they do is use that to try to figure out a way to get into another house. Factors that are non-material by law or regulation. And those things are pretty obvious to us most of the time. All of the items that line up as far as discrimination and things like that go, those they aren't pertinent to the problem. In fact, they're to the house. They are not things that we should even bring up. We don't need to bring up who lived there before. We don't need to bring up who the neighbors are. And we don't need to bring up any of those the discrimination things that are involved in there. We don't need to, I think California has like 28 things that are discriminatory, but I think the federal government only has about 12, and that's what this is relying on, is the regular ones that we know about. We know about gender, we know about all the regular things. We know about race, we know about religious orientation, we know about those kind of things. Those are not things that are pertinent to the property. They should not be referenced, they should not be used. They are non-material and don't have anything to do with that. Even death, and I put on here type of death. So we know that if somebody died, if an occupant died on the property within the last 3 years, it's up to us to disclose that. However, we do not have to and shouldn't even ask. I don't even ask people. I mean, they tell me sometimes whether I want to know or not, but we don't have to disclose the type of death and things. We only have to disclose that there was a death of an occupant on the property within the last 3 years. And if you read over the transfer disclosure statement they're doing, or the exempt seller disclosure, if they happen to be doing that, it asks for, has there been the death of an occupant on the property in the last 3 years? And yes, the property is the property. If the property is identified to be on 5 acres and somebody fell off a tractor on the back 4 acres and I disappeared. Lucky for you. Camera's searching for me again. Sorry about that. Okay, so if they're not pertinent to the purposes of selling the property, then they do not, and they should not be disclosed. That is part of our standard of practice. Okay, now we're going to skip over some of these, and I'm going to drop down to number 4. That's one of the ones that Cindy threw out there. Seller shall not acquire an interest in or buy or present offers from themselves, any member of their immediate families, their firms, or any member thereof, or entities in which they have any ownership interest, any real property without making their true position known to the owner or the owner's agent or the broker in selling the property. All right, so that's pretty obvious, but the big thing in here is that the seller shall reveal their ownership or interest in a property no matter what. About 2 years ago, I had an opportunity to I've bought several flip properties in my life. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to buy a flip property, and it was a gentleman who was blind and his partner passed away, and so it left him blind owning the house. All right, so is that an opportunity for somebody to take advantage of somebody? It certainly is. It kind of opens up all the doors. That was not my intention. And so I had somebody who could read and relate everything to him as a representative. Sit down with us. I went over all of the comps of what the house was worth right then. And I also wrote down what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to offer them the value of the house as it sits right now. You don't have to do anything to it. And I will take it over. My intention is to replace all your carpeting, repaint the inside of the house, repaint the flooring in the other room, blah, 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 blah. All of the things that I was going to do to the property. And then I'm going to resell it. And my hope is that I can resell it for as much as I paid, plus as much as I put into it. And that was all spelled out in an addendum to the listing contract, so that they knew exactly what it was that I was going to do with the property. And I was going to make a significant amount. It wasn't like, I couldn't replace years worth of selling real estate or anything like that. But I was going to make some money on it. I also told him that he would have the opportunity to do the same thing. If you just wanted to do all this work and put all of this into it, you could sell it at that much and make this much money out of it. And so through his aide that was helping him with the contract and things, we made sure that everything was covered in there. That made that situation legal. If I'd have gone into it and said only, I'll give you $465 for it, he's blind. Do you think that's do you think that is something that would come up in the discrimination things or something, or at least in the, it definitely would come up under being taken advantage of, or could, if they didn't know the other things that were going on. So it's important for them to know all of those things. If your company, if you have an LLC and you're going to go buy a property, if you have a brother who you're going to help buy this property and you're going to give some of your commission and all that stuff, that's all okay. It's just that you have to make sure that both parties understand exactly what's going on. That is what Article 4 is referring to. That says buyers shall not acquire an interest without telling all of those things. So just remember, those things are legal. They just need to be heavily disclosed. All right, Article 5. Realtors shall not undertake to provide professional services concerning a property or its value where they have a present or contemplated interest. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that I own a roofing company and I tell you that you need a new roof on the house. That means that I own a landscape company and we need to clean up this landscaping thing and I'll get somebody over here. Well, you can do those things, but if you revert back to Article 4, where it says that you have to let people know about the relationship, then that's exactly what you have to do. Okay, the roof is going to have to be repaired or replaced or whatever the case may be. I have a brother who owns a roofing company. Not really. I wish I had over the weekend, but I actually don't. But anyway, I have a brother who has a roofing company. And I can have him come over and bid the job, and he might be able to save us a few bucks, but I can also have it bid by other roofers. Or if you have a roofer in mind, Mr. Seller, I can call them. Or we can go to the white pages online and find out if there are other roofers in the area that have time to take care of this and time to get it into escrow and back out the other side. So you can do those things, but if you have some kind of an interest or you have a potential or a relative or something has a potential interest on any professional services, those things, and you might think this anyway, why would I not say this? Well, you'd be surprised how many people are out there that would not do those things. So this is an Article 5 item that has to do again with disclosure. Article 6. But the realtor shall not accept any commission, rebate, or profit made for their client without the complete knowledge. All right, so if I have the opportunity, you know, we've had this come up before in our lives, as you might expect. And I redlined this down here. It says what when recommending real estate products or services like homeowners insurance, warranty programs, mortgage financing, title insurance, realtors shall disclose to the client or customer to whom the recommendation is made any financial benefit. So if a homeowner's, if an insurance company comes to me and says, you know what? If you bring me business, I'll give you 10% or whatever it happens to be, or a home warranty thing is taking you out for your birthday or things like that. Okay, those things have to be disclosed. Everybody has to know about those things. If everybody knows, and I don't mean that I told them, I mean that I told them in writing, because if anything comes down the road, I want an amendment that says something, or not necessarily a doesn't have to necessarily go into escrow unless I'm being paid out of escrow, but I need an addendum or something that indicates that that's what's going on. Standard of practice 6.1. Realtors shall not recommend or suggest to a client or a customer the use of services of another organization or business entity in which they have a direct interest, without disclosing such interest at the time of the recommendation. It kind of goes hand in hand with Article 6, which is saying that if I have any money coming from any of these other places, because I own part of it, because I'm involved in part of it, because I get a kickback from it, or whatever it happens to be, you have to let everybody know exactly what's going on. Otherwise, it's a violation. Okay, and the last one that Cindy wanted to go over. And this is kind of a short one here. It's only like, 2 lines long. But in those 2 lines, it indicates quite a few things. Realtors shall not engage in activities that constitute the unauthorized practice of the law and shall recommend that legal counsel be obtained when the interest of any party to the transaction requires it. Now, you know where we run into this a lot of times is that people will talk, you guys are filling out an offer, or I'm filling out an offer, or whatever the case may be. And there are some other things in there that like maybe there's some, I don't know, maybe there's some personal property included or something. Maybe there's another lot that is included in the purchase price. Maybe there's whatever it happens to be. If we just draw those things up ourselves, we need to make sure that they're done right. A good way to make sure that that verbiage is correct would be to get a hold of Cindy or get a hold of myself or get a hold of Randy if you can't get a hold of one of us. Your first step would be to get a hold of either Cindy or myself to try to walk through it. We'll help you with the verbiage so that people and things and places and other agents and things can't come back on you on the other side. One that we see quite a bit is in the other terms, it'll say purchase price includes furnishings. And that's all it says. Well, here's the issue with that, without going through and putting it in the right terms. It now potentially becomes an appraisal issue, because if there's a lot of furniture in the house, the appraiser is actually only appraising the value of the house. And if there's a value attached to that furnishings that are on the inside, then that could change the potential to get the appraisal to appraise. That's one item. If I were to put something like that in there, it wouldn't say it like that. It would say it more to the, if I wanted it in the contract itself, I would say something more to the fact that personal furnishings are included at no value and without warranty. All right, so 2 things happen with that. At no value indicates that price that I'm offering on it is also the price that includes the furniture and things. But I'm not establishing a value, so an appraiser doesn't care about it. And with no warranty protects your seller down the road, because I've seen times in my life, believe it or not, I've seen where somebody included a washer or a dryer, and within 2 weeks, the washer went out. And then they go back to the seller and say, well, you didn't tell us it was an old beat up washer that wasn't gonna work very long or something. And there ends up being friction and there ends up being a bad guy in the situation, because no matter what. The realtor is stuck in the middle of all of these things. They're either in the middle of it to make it go smoothly, or they can be in the middle of it to blame. Or they can be put in the middle of it to create an obstacle to get it taken care of the right way. So the idea is that if you have anything else that's going on with the agreement, then you understand. And maybe another one might be seller financing. Okay, so it says in your other terms or your other financing terms, you put owner will carry $50,000 for 2 years. Well, that is not enough on its own. If you put in there, owner will cover $50,000 for 2 years at an interest rate of such and such and blah, 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 blah. Or the better thing to do would be to make sure owner will carry, please refer to the seller financing agreement, the SFA. And that goes through and breaks down the term on how long I'm going to finance my share of it for, what the interest rate is, if there are late fees and late penalties and things involved. See, that attorney work has all been done for us if we just make sure that we refer to the right things. So that being said, if you have things that you're trying to write into a contract that are different than what the actual contract says, what page 1 through 5 in the grid says, and you're trying to do other terms or other anything, if it's not very obvious, if it's not real obvious what's going on, please give us a call. We would rather handle the situation ahead of time. It's not an uncomfortable call. It's just going to be, how do I write this? And you know what? We'll tell you how to write it to keep you out of trouble and keep you from violating these different articles. I can tell you that Pro Standards, which is a committee that exists throughout all of CAR, and certainly exists in every single local association. They have a committee that these kind of things get referred to all the time. That's why Cindy wanted to bring it up, because there are misrepresentation things that go in. There are disclosure things that go in. There are things like this that should go in other terms that should be written a certain way, but they're not clear enough. And so then when they backfire, then the other agent is the one that has the better case because we didn't do it the right way to start out with. So it's a lot easier to handle the things going in than it is to fight them coming out. So let's just take the time we need to make sure we don't misrepresent, to make sure that if we do anything where we're going to be a party to the transaction, an actual party, because understand that as an agent, you're not a party to the transaction. There's nowhere for you to sign that says, I accept this agreement. That's between the buyer and the seller. So that's not you. And the seller's disclosures, that's not you. You have your Avid, that's your disclosure. That's where you put down anything you can. And as long as you abide by these articles that we talked about today, you're going to be okay as far as the representation part of things are concerned. And like I said, if you have questions or doubts or anything, don't hesitate to call. We've walked more than one person. You wouldn't be the first call. We've walked more than one person through putting together a contract that made sense and was legal. And those things are important to us, and they should be important to you. Okay. So a little after 4. We finished up all the stuff we were supposed to. If there are no questions, are there any questions? Now's the time to holler. Sorry,
Are you going to share these at all?
Are they not shared right now?
Terry, I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
For some of the client that we represent as a buyer, they don't speak English well, and so they asked us to go to the city hall to find out if like the public record, to find out if the room is permitted or not. How do you deal with those clients that expect the agent to help research the permit situation for them?
That's a great question, and absolutely, I do what I can for my clients if they can't do it themselves, if that makes any sense. I don't mind calling the city or the county or whoever it is. I don't mind making that call to find out about permits or about whatever, to find out if they can do certain things to the property that they wanted to. I've had people that, I deal with a lot of properties that, or have dealt with a lot of properties that are rural and they are advertised as horse properties. And then when you actually go to the city to find out if they, or the county to find out if they were horse properties for the person that lives there. However, the zoning has been changed. If I have doubts about those things, or if I have somebody like you just said, that doesn't really understand the way things are put together because of a language barrier of some kind, then I certainly would do what I could to help them. But what this basically says is this says that I'm not required to. And I think that's the key. The key is that these articles are to tell you that you don't have to. They don't tell you that you can't. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you. And then second question is, you know how you said to not tell the buyer the reason why the seller is selling? What if the buyer asks and we know the reason is, oh, they're getting divorced, or, they're moving to a different state? Do we not tell at all? We're just going to say, oh, the seller doesn't want us to say anything?
Yeah.
Or how do we that if
Yeah,
we do?
That's the way you handle it on that second thing that you said. What you say is that that's confidential between the seller and I, and they ask that we not discuss those things, and they don't really have anything to do with the value of the house anyway. Does that cover it, or did that make it
Yeah.
harder?
So what if the seller doesn't care if we tell them?
Oh, that's okay then. If it's a seller disclosure, then it's a seller disclosure. I've actually seen in the private remarks on an MLS before where somebody wrote in there that sellers are getting a divorce. And they actually put it in I would never do that because I don't think that I'm offering the best service to whoever it is that I'm representing. I don't encourage the sellers to do that kind of thing, but if they want to, it's their house and it's their contract. And they can do what they want as long as it's within the legal ramifications of the real estate laws.
Great, thank you so much.
They can say whatever they want to. Sometimes that's bad, I sometimes encourage, well, we're getting a divorce and I don't want to ever see her again, and I don't want to ever see him again, and we're having to split up everything and stuff, and it becomes really nasty. And depending on how much you get into it, we tend to do this a little bit, okay? You are a female. You probably knew that, but you are a female and I'm a male, and we look at things from two different sides. And so depending on who's talking to us at the time, is my opinion going to be changed one way or the other? If I'm a female hearing that from the wife, that my husband is a louse and a cheat and a drunk and all the other things that we guys do. Not me, of course, but I'm just saying. Anyway, then I'm kind of taking her side. So am I representing everybody who has to sign that contract? Not really. And so I have to be really careful about those things. So I'm careful about what I hear and I'm careful about what I say. Okay,
Terry,
anything?
it's me.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yes, Miriam. What about if I'm showing a property and the client asks me, Miriam, is that mold? Or Miriam, do you think that's termite? What should I answer?
You know, and that's a super question also, because the answer to that kind of falls into the, I won't say avoidance, but what you can say is that, what you can say is something to the effect, depends on what you see, obviously, you know. But you can say, you know what? It looks like it could be, what I would recommend is that when we do our investigation of the property, we get somebody who's actually an expert in that field, because they'll come out and scrape it and test it and determine whether or not it's mold or whether or not it's just some kind of a black fungus or something like that that can be taken care of with bleach. So I don't put myself in a position that, like, I know, it's not like, oh yeah, that's definitely mold.
Yeah,
That's
it
not
looks
my
like,
position, because I'm not a mold guy.
right. Great, thank you.
Sure. Okay, everybody else good? Except for
Terry,
you're
I have a
wondering if we
question. I have a quick question. It's a little off topic.
Okay.
I have a
Can you give
client that,
me, can you give me 10 seconds to see if Carolyn can put these, share these in the chat so you guys can print them? Just give me a few seconds here to grab her. Carolyn? People were asking me if we could share. Okay, Carolyn's getting on her computer to share this with anybody, well, with everybody that's on here, so. Okay, back to your question.
okay, so a little off topic, and I have a client that wants to buy land. And I was wondering if you and I can discuss that. I'm not a land expert, but they're feeling like they are clueless about it. And when do you think that that would be a good time for me to reach out to you? Or do you have any general things to
Yeah,
share?
we have some things that we can talk about. I have a pre-licensing class that goes on here in just a few minutes, where it's people that are trying to get their license. And then tomorrow morning, I have a foundations class that goes from 9 till 11. But if you call me sometime right after that, or text me your phone number to get in touch with you, I'll call you as soon as I get done with that and we'll chat. Will that work?
I'll find your phone number. Yeah.
I'll just give it to you if you have a pen or something. It's 951 551 4714. And that's my cell phone. I have it on me most of the time.
Oh, okay, there it is. Okay, I'll get a pen.
You got it? Okay, yeah, just give me a jingle sometime shortly after 11 or anytime tomorrow afternoon.
Hey Terry,
Yes,
I had a quick question. It might be a little bit off topic, but what's your thoughts on sending out multiple offers at once? I mean, is that ethical? Is that okay? Because I have a buyer that really loves two properties, and I'm not sure if we're able to do that or not.
all right, so here's the thing is that it kind of goes in with the ethical part of thing. And that is that actually your client is probably not capable of buying both properties, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and so the only way to make that make sense at all would be to disclose to the other party that you are sending out more than one offer.
Got it. So, and I mean, and that
So
would just be
if
part of
they
the
had to
offer.
send out two offers, then both parties should understand that your buyer has actually submitted offers on more than one property. I will tell you that once you do that, it kind of triggers it with the selling agent, because the selling agent says, oh yeah, well, we could go to all the trouble of accepting this or countering it or whatever. And then they could go the other way, which is kind of true anyway. But
Okay.
it makes the other agent a little bit skittish But it is done and it's nothing you'll go to jail for.
Okay, I just thank you. That answers my question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I don't know, does the seller care which one he gets? I mean, it's like, really, I want this
Yeah.
one, but let's write one on this one just in case. What I would do is I'd just go hard after the one that he wants and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is that the one they want is like at their max, like price that they're approved for. And I just feel like the other one, they have a better shot at. But I mean, I already wrote the offer for the one that they really wanted, and I'm waiting to hear back. But I wasn't sure in the interim if I should go ahead and submit an offer on the other one in case they're still reviewing offers or not.
Yeah, it kind of even says in the contract itself, in the RPA itself. And any counter offers and things, that it basically says that the house will continue to be on the market. And that being on the market means that people could still write offers, or that you could write offers on others. It kind of opens it up a little bit. It says it in more words than what I just said. But until there's an agreement, there's not an agreement, if that makes sense.
Yep, it does. Great. Well, thank you, Terry. I appreciate it.
What if the second offer comes through and they sign it? Is he ready to move forward there?
They would be, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay,
whichever one,
that's,
yeah,
I always
whichever one
get curious
accepted it
about
first.
those things, yeah.
Yeah, I think, if whichever one came back first, they would take it.
Okay. Okay, Carolyn was going to put this in the chat. I don't know if she's done that yet. Do any of you see a
Yep.
handout in your chat?
It's there.
Okay, perfect. So you can print out whatever you have to out of your chat. And if there are no other questions, last chance. Be sure and tell Cindy how much you missed her when she comes back and how you don't ever want Terry to do this again. All right. I'm gonna let you all go then. I'm gonna stop sharing and have a good day. Are you guys all getting rain wherever you're at? Kind of pretty much, huh?
Yes.
Tons of it.
rain.
Tons of it. Is anybody sliding off a hillside? Let's see, Patty, you're up there and where it kind of hit
Ventura, but
first,
I'm not
aren't
on the
you?
hill, thank goodness.
Oh, you're at least not on a hill. Well, I would say that I wouldn't want to be on a hill or right at the bottom of the hill. I would say that either way
Yeah,
could
really.
potentially be an issue. So anyway, but you're doing okay up there?
Yes.
Good.
You too?
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't get it quite as much. We're kind of, I mean, we did definitely get rain throughout. I was in Marietta earlier today and Temecula earlier today and things, and it was raining constant, but it wasn't a hard rain. It was just constant.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was kind of giving it time to soak up and things, and
Very
all
good.
right. I
Thank
will
you
let
very
you all
much.
go anytime. Call if you need anything. I think I accidentally gave my phone number to everybody just then.
You did.
I see.
Yay!
I see. We'd have to call T-Mobile and see if I can change that. All right.